Is Jack Grealish's career coming to an end following Pep Guardiola's comments on why Savinho is starting ahead of Jack Grealish?
I try to be honest with myself, for that. And what happened with Savio delivery in the box is higher than maybe the other wingers in that position, and they have to fight. You can say, okay, now it's unfair. Okay, if you decide you think about that, it's fine. You have to prove, okay, I'm going to fight with Savinho to deserve to play, in that position.
I'm going to use the exact same clips that I used from a video I made 6 months ago where I saw this exact scenario coming. During the treble-winning season, Jack Grealish, Riyad Mahrez and Bernardo Silva were Pep's go-to options on the wings thanks to their ability to hold on to the ball under pressure and their preference for receiving a pass to feet rather than running in behind. Grealish and Silva in particular both offered an unbelievable defensive work rate that also became an invaluable asset for Manchester City over the course of the treble-winning season. Jack Grealish was bait, simply to draw players over to him to create those wider passing lanes. This not only meant that spaces were being created inside the pitch, but City's other players could move further up the pitch, pinning the opposition back into eventual submission. Simply advancing as a unit was one advantage, but they were also able to quickly regroup if they lost their shape and in a position to counter-press if the possession was lost. But towards the end of that treble-winning season and throughout the entire 23-24 season, opposition managers stopped falling for that Jack Grealish trap. Opposing managers were utilising a very narrow defensive shape and allowing our controlling wide players like Jack Grealish and Bernardo Silva to have the ball out wide with no more than one opposition player being drawn over to the wings to confront them. Often the opposition fullbacks didn't even engage with the winger at all, instead asking their attacking wide players to drop deeper into defence and engage with them instead. As a result, not only did City struggle to find spaces through inside channels, but Erling Haaland was suffocated out of certain games altogether. Pep tried to alleviate this by pushing Guardiola or Walker forward, and sometimes both, to try and stretch and open up the channels in the opposition's defence. This approach ultimately worked and City won a 4th Premier League title in a row, but we lived incredibly dangerously at times, being caught on the counter-attack so frequently with Guardiola and Walker both pushing so far forward. Pep knew exactly what was coming, hence the signing of Jeremy Doku, and Pep's comments on Doku in that same season is just further highlighting the shift in mentality towards his wide players.
It's difficult to find today in the world football players like dribble, All the managers say, don't lose the ball, don't dribble, pass the ball, don't dribble. The wingers has to dribble. Well, I don't like to dribble 60 meters, about an 80-yard box. Take a risk, dribble, it's your talent, and find them is not easy. And they know they have all the freedom to, in that area, take the decisions they have to take, but mainly he takes a good decision.
Grealish has never been consistent at beating his fullback. Manchester City's treble-winning season saw Jack Grealish finish 24th in the Premier League for most successful dribbles. But as I've already mentioned, this wasn't a problem for Pep when the final third plan was never for Grealish to beat the fullback in the first place, but rather to control our attacks to create wider passing lanes. But Pep devised a new plan for the 23-24 season, and the first step in this plan was signing Jeremy Doku. An example of Pep's plan was in the second half of the FA Cup final against United. Wan-Bissaka was handling the threat of Guardiola down the left-hand side, but the sheer presence of the second half substitute Doku required 2 defenders, as Doku so often does. Doku scored and created the spaces City needed, but unfortunately the damage had already been done in the first half. By the end of the 23-24 Premier League season, Grealish finished 118th in the Premier League for successful dribbles, and this was over 2,124 minutes, compared to Doku, who finished 2nd in the Premier League for successful dribbles, playing only 181 minutes more than Grealish. Signing Jeremy Doku was Pep's first step in the plan, and now City have doubled down on fast-paced, aggressive, ball-carrying wingers by signing Savio. Savio, who finished the 23-24 season with the highest number of dribbles completed in the whole of La Liga, So with Pep adding another dribbling wizard to his squad, clearly there's a new strategy at play. Adding Doku and Savinho is an attempt to encourage individualism, players that can single-handedly create goals and score them themselves, even against a low block. Opposition teams most frequently use two strategies to keep City at bay: defending narrowly, allowing City to have the ball in wider areas, or simply opting for a man-to-man. Both of these defensive approaches can be breached by individual moments of dribbling brilliance or just the knowledge of their capabilities. The narrow defence can be disrupted by the simple presence of a take-on threat from the likes of a Doku or a Savio, forcing an extra player out of their narrow defensive shape, creating those inside passing lanes that Pep is looking for. Alternatively, the opposition could employ a man-to-man defensive setup, which against Doku and Savio would be a very brave ploy. Isolating the fullbacks against the likes of Jeremy Doku would bring the advice of Thierry Henry into the picture, who once said, when you're one-on-one with him, there's only one thing left to do: pray. Adding Savio to the opposite wing not only adds balance to City's attack, providing an equal threat on both sides of the pitch, but the byproduct of this threat also stretches the opposition's back line. If the opposition decides to double up against Doku or Savio, this will create the spaces we want between the fullback and the centre-back for the likes of Foden or Kevin De Bruyne to ghost into unmarked, and that's without the need for the winger to even take on their fullback. Developing that understanding and relationship between Haaland and the wide players will be key, of course. Crosses from the byline are a nightmare to defend against, and once Haaland sees Doku or Savio bursting past the fullbacks to the byline, that will be his green light to sprint into the box with one of his trademark runs. In the 23-24 campaign, Haaland's relationship with City's wide players often lacked the necessary chemistry. Chopping back or dummying a cross will of course maintain the ball and give City the option to play it inside again, but with teams working out that that's what Grealish wanted to do, it became predictable and difficult for City to break down the opposition's narrow defensive shape. This now brings into question Jack Grealish's future at Manchester City, with Pep clearly going for a different attacking style, or at least giving City a new option to their attacking styles. Is there room for Jack Grealish out wide? For me, Grealish now has two options. He either completely changes his style of play, which considering he's turning 30 next season seems a big ask, or he could simply be used more centrally and see him return to those Aston Villa days. But what do you think? Let me know what you think for the future of Jack Grealish. Get in the comments below, let us know your thoughts, like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical